Hey everyone, let's see here. How's it going, everyone? My name is RoShawn. Thank you for tuning in once again, following my case. I'm not a lawyer, so this paperwork that I'm going over, it's a lot that I may overlook, but yet I still have questions going over this paperwork. A lot of things don't sit right because it's not right, so thank you for tuning in. I like to say, for those of you that it's your first time tuning in, please go watch the previous videos. It'll tell you how we got to this point. What we're doing, we're going over my case that happened to me over 20 years ago now. A case that took place when I was 17. A case that it's hard to overcome, and a case that I'm still battling with right now today. This case took place in 1999. It's 2020, and I'm still feeling the effects of this case right now. Again, everything that I say here on this video, everything that I said on the previous videos, it's only my story, which is a third of the story. The other third is this paperwork that you can get from the open records request. So I make sure I'll continue to keep giving you the case numbers so you can actually go and pull these open records files and recover any names that I do not mention in this video. Or you can also purchase my books here. My books, these are my autobiography. Actually, these tell you the story in more detail as well. It also has legal documentation that's scanned in this book, so you can, again, not only just get my word, but you get my word plus legal documentation to support things that I say. We have a big file that we're going to go through today, so I'm going to jump right into it. This is the sentence guidelines. Let me go ahead and give you a brief recap of what's going on here. So I was 17 years old. At the age of 17, I didn't live at home with my mom for whatever reasons. It's irrelevant. I stayed out in the streets. I was more comfortable where I was. Ended up getting into a situation to where a young lady that was 1 year and 4 months younger than me snuck out of her home, or snuck away from the home, I should say, because her mom actually told her to stay in the front yard, and I had no idea that she was sneaking away from the house. Came to hang out with me. Ultimately ended up getting in trouble. The mom tripped out. I really don't know what took place in the home except for what's in this paperwork. It appeared that the young lady may have made a statement to get her out of trouble, but yet I don't think she actually thought through what would actually happen to me behind her comments. And then when it got serious, and she had to talk to a real police officer, she told the police officer that nothing happened. She wanted to have sex, and pretty much she told even the judge that she didn't want me to get in trouble, but yet you had an angry parent that was pushing for a punishment because she couldn't actually control her daughter. That I would not say her name because she was 1 year and 4 months younger than me. I was 17. With her age, they considered her as a minor. And ultimately, I ended up signing a plea deal for touching a minor, even though we're 1 year and 4 months apart. The law states you can't legally have sex unless you have a legal parent or guardian's consent, or it can't be over a 2-year age gap. Since she fell in between the ages of 13 and 16, they considered her a minor. She couldn't really almost technically talk or say anything without her mom. She couldn't do anything. And since I was over 16, they considered me an adult, even though I was under 18. So My charge was misdemeanor CSC 4, touching a minor. Maximum punishment was 2 years in prison, or a fine up to $500. But yet here we go, over 20 years, and I'm still stuck in this system behind this case that's a misdemeanor. And I'm just trying to figure out how to fix it. So let's jump into the paperwork. We have case number that we're going to be going over today. It's the people of the state of Michigan, plaintiff versus RoShawn C. Evans, defendant, which is me. Court case number, file number is 00-5992-FH. Judge is Richard B. U. Judge U. My attorney was David Grant. The prosecutor was David Nubula. When I read this transcript, anytime you hear me say the court is in representation of a Judge U. So when you hear the court, that's actually Judge U talking. Okay, so let's dive right on in. I'm going to read this transcript. I have a lot of things highlighted in this court document, just like all the previous documents. So please go watch the videos. And the highlights, that's where I have questions or comments. So you'll hear me talking. I also have notes, so I don't forget to touch up on certain things. So, Flint, Michigan, May 31st, 2000 at 2:35 p.m. The court, case number 2000-5992-FH, People versus RoShawn Evans. And again, I'm going to refrain from saying the young lady's name because she was a minor. But if you want her name, please put this open record request, because if you want the full story, again, don't just take my word for it. Listen to everything that I'm saying. Follow my story and the things that I've been saying since I've been a kid. You can also pull these open record requests. You can look through these open record requests and then talk to the last part of the story, which is the young lady, because she's no longer a minor. She can actually talk for herself now. The court, case number 2000-5992-FH, People versus RoShawn Evans. Mr. Grant. It's my attorney. Mr. Grant, good afternoon, Your Honor. The court. Good afternoon, Mr. Grant. Did you finish your trials over at federal court? Mr. Grant. No. We had a break today. Hopefully Friday. But I've been saying that for the past 3 weeks. The court, or Judge U. Are you RoShawn Evans? Me. Yes, sir. The court. Mr. Evans, you're before me today for sentencing following your conviction on a charge of criminal sexual conduct in the 4th degree. The conviction came about as a result of a guilty plea you entered on May 1st, 2000. So, I entered this guilty plea, I must say, because my lawyer told me, which I talked about on the previous video, that if I did not agree to this plea bargain, if I didn't take this deal that they was giving me for criminal sexual conduct in the 4th degree, or statutory misdemeanor charge, maximum 2 years for touching a minor, for touching someone that's 1 year and 4 months younger than me, because they snuck away from the house. If I didn't sign this plea deal, that I was going to get 15 years in prison. I didn't want 15 years in prison. I've been saying this for years, and I'm going to continuously say it, but at the age of 17, I couldn't imagine doing 24 hours. And they were talking about 15 years. I was 17 years old, so they wanted me to do my entire life again behind bars. And it's like, so I had two choices. I could either continuously tell them nothing happened and how we hung out and she touched me and I touched her and nothing happened out of the ordinary, or I can take this guilty plea for touching her like I told them and take this misdemeanor charge. They said, since I admitted to touching this girl and she fell between the ages of 13 and 16, it didn't matter that we was peers. Just because I touched her was enough for them to actually put me in prison for 15 years. And I wasn't doing that. But so I signed this deal, and here we go. Mr. Grant, have you had the opportunity to review the pre-sentencing report in this case? Mr. Grant, yes, I have, Your Honor. The court. Are there any corrections, any deletions, any objections to the material in this report? In the prior report, the prior video from the previous court date, they told my lawyer if he didn't accept all terms of the agreement, if he had any objections, if he had anything that he wanted to change in the report, that they would take the entire deal away from me and I would get 15 years. Like, if I didn't accept with the terms that they was giving me, I was going to have to go to a trial. And with me writing a 16-page statement stating everything that happened from the beginning to the end, which nothing happened except her sneaking away, with her touching me and me touching her, with us mutually touching each other, even though she said everything was fine and she wanted to have sex, that was still enough to send me to prison for 15 years for the simple fact that she fell between the ages of 13 and 16. Even though I gotta put emphasis that we were 1 year and 4 months apart. We still 1 year and 4 months apart. We both were under 18. We both were minors. But since she fell between the ages of 13 and 16, just for me touching her, I can get 15 years in prison. And I wasn't having it. So, on May 1st, 2000, they said I have no Cobbs Agreement. For those of you that's lawyers, you know what a Cobbs Agreement is. Those of you that's not, they said if we challenged, objected, or did not accept whatever they offered as is, I would go to trial. And if I went to trial, I would get 15 years at the age of 17. My lawyer stated in the previous day, the day before this day, I think May 1st, my lawyer on May 1st stated that the only reason I was in court was because the young lady was in the ages between 13 and 16, and he didn't want to jeopardize me going to trial on a 15-year sentence. So we took the deal, unfortunately. The court. Have you had the opportunity to review the victim impact statement and the accompanying letter? As indicated, attached to it is a bill. There's also indications in the impact statement of some lost items or personal property or clothing. So they talk about this impact statement, and I have a question on who actually wrote the impact statement. You know, like, did the impact statement come from the young lady, or did the impact statement come from her mother, since she was unable to speak on her own behalf because she was a minor? And if the impact statement came from the young lady, I wonder what it said, since she had this angry mother standing over her shoulder. So I do wonder who wrote the impact statement. I never seen one. I want to know, what does it say? Or was the impact statement directed by the prosecutor that was pushing for a charge? So, you know, that impact statement, I do wonder. And then when they talk about these lost items, it's like, what lost items? Like, the way we picked her up was the way we dropped her off. I wonder, you know, why didn't they say what items was lost on the record? You know, to me, it seemed like they was trying to make a situation sound worse than what it was actually, how the situation was. But anything further that you wish to say, Mr. Nubula, or that the family wants to say? Mr. Nubula, Your Honor, the young lady would like to address the court at this time, so I'd like to invite her up to the lecture. So the young lady that snuck away from the house want to address the court. I'm about to give you her exact words. Now again, she told the investigator that you'll get when I was going through paperwork on the other video of how she wanted to have sex and nothing happened out of line, and she felt that everything was her fault. And in the next sentence, her mom interjects after she tells the investigator that she wanted to have sex and that all of this was her fault. Her mama interjects and say that she was going to press charges on me and everybody that was involved. So, the young lady would like to address the court at this time, so I'd like to invite her to the lectern. The court. Mr. Evans, would you and your attorney please have a seat? Good afternoon. The young lady states, she says, good afternoon, Your Honor. The court. And your name? The young lady say, my name is, and she tell the court her name. The court or Judge Yu say, all right, I need you to keep your voice up a little bit. What do you want to tell me? The young lady states, she say, I just want to tell you that I do not want in any way for him to be in prison for a punishment or go to jail. So, again, the court, the judge asked her, all right, I need you to keep your voice up a little bit. What do you want to tell me? This is what the young lady said. Again, I emphasize, she told law enforcement that everything was her fault. She told law enforcement that she wanted to have sex. Her mother interjected and told law enforcement she was pressing charges on me anyway and anybody who had anything else to do with what happened that night. But anybody to do with what? Anybody to do with her daughter sneaking out the house? What? Now, we in the courtroom after I signed this deal to avoid 15 years in prison, and the judge asked her, what do you have to say to me? One of the only times she was able to talk because her mama did all the talking. These are her words from the docket. It say, I just want to tell you that I do not want in any way for him, which is me, to get in trouble, any way for him to be in prison for punishment or go to jail. That's what she said. The young lady that was 1 year, 4 months younger than me that snuck out of the house. And you want to know why she didn't want me to be in trouble, get punished, go to jail, or go to prison? Because nothing happened. You want to know why she didn't want me to go to jail, go to prison, or get in trouble? Because, like, the only thing that took place that night was her being disobedient. But yet, I get it, you know, like, she was a young girl and she can't control the actions of her mother. You know, like, if her mother, you know, want to do whatever she gonna do in life, there's no way that she can stop her. But she told the courts in so many words that, well, with the few words that she said to the investigator in the courts, she told them in so many words like, hey, look, my mama is tripping and I don't really know what to do, but this is the situation at hand. And in so many words, like in her way, like you can tell that she just didn't want to be in trouble, but yet she didn't want me to get in trouble either. Like, Even when I bumped into the girl when this situation was taking place and I realized what happened, the first thing she did was broke down and started crying. And she started telling me, I'm sorry. It's not me. It's my mother. I don't know what to do. And she won't listen to me. So you have this young lady telling me that her mama tripping and she don't know how to stop this. You know, you have this young lady telling the investigator that she wanted to have sex and, you know, like all of this was her fault. And then you have the same young lady telling the judge that she do not want me to get in trouble. She do not want me to go to jail. She do not want me to go to prison. But in the same token, you have this mother pushing for somebody to get in trouble because of what? Because she's embarrassed? Because she's afraid to say, you know what? I overreacted and I'm sorry. You know, I don't get it. You know, like, why am I here? Because you got a lawyer, prosecutor that don't want to lose a case. A judge that really don't care what really happened to me because I'm a young minority male standing in the courtroom alone by myself with no support system, no money. This is where we at. The court asked the young lady, do you have anything else to say? She say, no, Your Honor. The court, all right then, thank you. Mr. Nubila, that's all. Thank you, Your Honor. The court, Mr. Grant, you and your client can return to the podium. Anything you wish to tell me? Mr. Grant, yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, after reading the pre-sentencing report, my client is obviously in contradiction in terms here. Absolutely, I'm in contradiction in terms. So, I signed a plea deal to avoid 15 years in prison for CSC 4, which is statutory. We're a year and 4 months apart. The law states you can't legally have sex unless you are 18 years of age. I was not that. I was 17. And it states that you can't, if you're between the ages of 13 and 16, you have to have a legal parent or guardian's consent. I didn't fall in between 13 and 16. So I didn't have to have a legal parent or guardian's consent, but yet you can't have sex until you're 18, which both of us was under, but she fell between 13 and 16, and I was 17. So where does this put me in this gray area? Like, we both were minors. I didn't have to have a parent or legal guardian's consent. She did. But yet, the law states you can't have over a 2-year age gap. But yet, this charge, misdemeanor CSC 4, statutory, touching a minor that they charged me with, state you must have over a 5 or more year age gap. And we are 1 year and 4 months apart. The judge asked on May 1st, which is on the other video, how do they get the terms to charge me with what they were charging me for? And the prosecutor said, because on the basis of the CSC 3rd degree, which is also statutory, it states that the client, anybody between the ages of 13 and 16 is a minor. So that's what it states on CSC 4, which is statutory. But that's a felony 15-year charge. But that same felony 15-year charge that states you can't be between 13 and 16 and have no contact without a legal parent or guardian's consent also states that the other person have to be 5 or more years older. That's the only way you can get the statutory charge. So they amended me down to statutory CSC 4, which is no longer a 15-year sentence, but it's a maximum of 2 years. Same exact charge. I can't tell the difference between CSC 3 and CSC 4 outside of CSC 3 is a felony that has a maximum of 15 years in prison, and CSC 4 is a misdemeanor with a 2-year maximum. So, them the only differences I see. And then, you know, felony has that 5-year age gap. But outside of that, I don't see any differences. But the judge asked, how are they getting this language? How are you saying he's 5 more years older than her when they are peers? And they say, because if you establish the point that she fell in between 13 and 16, then you can establish the basis of the age gap. Which, again, I'm not a lawyer and it still don't make sense to me. But my lawyer states that I am in contradiction to the terms of this agreement because I don't fit in this deal that I signed. But yet, again, I signed it. And I signed it to avoid 15 years in prison. But, Mr. Grant, yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, after reading the pre-sentencing report, my client is obviously a contradiction in terms here. He's never been in trouble before. He looks like, from the pre-sentencing report, he's really having a rough time of it right now. He's living with a friend of mine who's a wrestling coach over at Southwestern. So, my attorney was actually my wrestling coach's friend. They went to school together. So, this attorney took my case because my wrestling coach asked him to take my case. So, he took my case. He is living with a friend of mine who is a wrestling coach over at Southwestern. And eventually, that kind of fell by the wayside. I have been to his house a couple of times to see, the type of environment that he's living in. Just as an addition, Your Honor, I was aware that Mr. Evans had been removed from my high school. He basically informed me that the rationale behind it was that he felt the principal or counselor was trying to inquire, I guess, a little bit too much in depth in terms of why he doesn't live with his mother. And that kind of upset him. And that caused him not to be able to go back to school because they told him that he could not go back unless his mother actually came up to school for a parent-teacher conference. And she did not go. But he didn't have he does have goals. He does have plans, Your Honor. He indicated to me, and I don't have it on record, but that while he was in school, he was a 3.8 grade point average. And I did. I had 3.8. Like the classes that I was taking, they were so elementary to me. It was like, but he's, according to his wrestling coach, he's a heck of a wrestler. Freestyle, folk style, Greco, All-American State. He has goals, the desire to one day go to college, Your Honor. I'm in college now, you guys. I kind of started kind of late, but sorry. He has the goal, the desire to one day go to college, Your Honor. Mr. Evans, to his benefit, is working 2 jobs right now, and I've seen him on both of them to verify both jobs are in fact something that he's doing at the same time. He has plans that he wants to go back to school in September. He's only 18. I had just turned 18, like 3 days prior to this. So he indicated that he should be able to go back to school into Flint Northern High School. And Your Honor, we just wouldn't ask you to look. We would ask you to look at the total picture here. We submitted a couple of letters to you at the time of the plea that Mr. Evans indicated were from the young lady. And the only thing I can say, Your Honor, is he turned 18 about 2 days ago. At the time of the incident, he was 17. And although she still would have been underage, she indicates to me that he thought she was 16. She was 3 weeks away from 16. So she was 15 at the time. Her birthday was 3 weeks later. So we're a year and 4 months apart. The court, all right, for the record, those letters predate this incident in quite some time. I think they were 2 years before that. So where he's living right now, Mr. Grant, he lives on Pearson Road, Your Honor, the court, with Mr. Grant, with his uncle and his uncle's girlfriend. The court, all right. And would they allow him to tether their unidentified speaker in the back? Yes. The court, all right. The voice from the back, I assume, is the resident, said yes. All right, Mr. Evans, anything you wish to tell me before I impose sentence? Me, no, sir. The court, all right. The defendant, me, I'm sorry for what happened. The court, anything else? The defendant, no, sir. So, I should have not been in trouble. The person that did the wrong thing was the young lady that snuck away from the house. But the position I was in, I was accepting a sentence in order to assure I didn't have to go to trial. If I go to trial, that means, at least what I thought from what my attorney told me, was that I would get 15 years in prison. And again, I wasn't doing that. So it's like I was mentally begging for leniency when I should have never been in a courtroom in the first place. Actually never thought that anybody would even sentence me for anything until I was looking at 15 years. I really believed that all this would go away. I really thought that this woman was tripping and there was nothing anybody can do to me. But ultimately, it was. And the odds was against me and I had no idea. I apologize. Anything further, Mr. Evans? Me, no, sir. The court, I have seen the pre-sentencing report, and while it appears, I'm not going to dwell on what happened, but while it appears that there may have been some relationship between Mr. Evans and the victim, in this case, what happened on December 24th, 1999 went beyond the bounds of a relationship. That's all that needs to be said. And I think Mr. Evans should be grateful that both the victim and the mother have been most forgiven in this instance. The letter that was written by the victim's mother, let me say that again. I think Mr. Evans should be grateful that both the victim and the mother been most forgiven in this instance. And the letter written by the mother, the letter written by the mother, that wasn't there. So, outside of the young lady that snuck out of the house at 1 a.m., or snuck away from the house at 1 a.m. to be grown, you know, what happened? You know, like, well, my question is, what happened that went beyond the bounds of a relationship? Like, what happened? Again, the young lady told the investigator she wanted to have sex. She told me her mom was tripping. Her mom wasn't listening to her and she didn't know what to do. She told the courts she didn't want me to go to prison, jail, or get in any trouble. This is because nothing happened. So, what went beyond the bounds of a relationship is my question. Her words is nothing happened. Her words is she don't want me to go to jail. She don't want me to go to prison. She don't want me to get in trouble. Her words, she wanted to have sex. Her words, all this happened because of her. So what happened that went beyond the bounds of a relationship? You know, out of the things that the young lady said when she was able to speak, you know, every time she came to say this is going way too far without saying this is going way too far. You had the mother right on the other end saying, we're punishing him. This is what we're going to do to him. He shouldn't have never messed with my daughter. And since he did, this is what he's going to get. And this is what happened here. You had an angry parent that was tripping out because she couldn't understand or couldn't control her daughter. You have a prosecutor here that is hungry to win a case. Then you have a judge that really don't care. And judges don't, if I'm not mistaken, they don't go through cases. They don't read cases. They just make judgments on the arguments that come from a prosecutor and the defense. And then you have my lawyer that is put in a position of having a young kid that is in a situation because of a young lady that snuck away from her house that falls in the ages of 13 and 16 that happens to be a minor, even though they're 1 year and 4 months apart, that he could possibly get 15 years just because of her age. So everything was just bad. And I think Mr. Evans should be grateful that both the victim and the mother have been most forgiving in this instance. The letter that was written by the victim's mother, that wasn't there, I must add, that wasn't there, is much more generous than it might be under the circumstances. How is she more generous? She's trying to ruin my life because she can't control her daughter that snuck away from the house, that disobeyed her order that said, do not leave the front yard. But them the words of the judge. There is no good explanation for what happened. And as Mr. Grant has indicated, Mr. Evans does not have any prior involvement with the criminal justice system. He now finds himself this is the judge, emphasize this, I have to emphasize this. He now finds himself in a situation where this will follow him for the rest of his life and may impact him in ways he can't even begin to imagine at this point. With this statement here, tells me that this judge knew and understood that I had no idea what was really going on, that I had no idea how this would impact me, because he said it himself at the time, that I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, but yet he accepted a plea deal from me as a minor by myself without any parental guidance advising me on what to do. Yes, I had a lawyer. Yes, this lawyer is taking care of me or being a face of me because of my wrestling coach. But where was my parents? Where was my mama? Where was my daddy? Why ain't nobody go find a parental guardian of me as a minor? How would anybody let me sign a plea deal to avoid 15 years in prison that they knew I didn't understand what I was actually getting myself into? And this is the judge talking here. He now finds himself in a situation where this will follow him for the rest of his life and may impact him in ways he can't ever begin to imagine at this time. The judge's words, straight from his mouth. He accepted a plea deal from a minor that he knew didn't understand what he was signing. The only thing that I understood was, if I continue to tell the truth of what happened, which nothing happened except her touching me and me touching her and us hanging out and doing what we wanted to do, which was be grown when no adults was around, I was going to get 15 years. What was understood was that if I did not sign this deal, I was getting 15 years. What was understood was if I went to trial, I was going to prison for 15 years. What was understood was if I accepted this plea deal as is, I would walk out of here as a free man without being incarcerated. That's what was understood. I signed this deal, and yet this judge, out of his mouth, knew that I didn't understand what I was getting myself into, but yet he accepted my plea deal as a minor. On the account of not caring about me because I was a young minority male in a courtroom with no support, on the account of this hungry prosecutor and this angry parent and this young girl that was looking at a possible beating, if you want to get technical. This judge accepted a plea deal from a minor that he knew did not understand, which is problematic. The recommendation is that Mr. Evans go to boot camp. And my feeling is that boot camp is perhaps the last step before prison. And if Mr. Evans did not succeed at boot camp, I might not have any other alternative but prison. And I'm not sure I want to put him in that position at this point. Put me in prison for what? The judgment states, the judgment of sentence. So what I'm going to do, Mr. Evans, I'm going to place you on probation for a period of 36 months. All statutory terms and conditions do apply. Again, I was 17. We were a year and 4 months apart. We both were under 18. We both were minors. We both did what we wanted to do, but yet I was the one getting charged, even though she was the one sneaking away from the house. I can't make none of this up. Like, this is the paperwork. I can't make any of this up. But so what I'm gonna do, Mr. Evans, I'm gonna place you on probation for a period of 3 years. That's 36 months. All statutory conditions apply. In addition, the following terms do apply. You're to pay $60 for Crime Victims Fund. The restitution will be assessed at $140 for the emergency room bill, $195 for the clothing that was lost as a result of being taken for evidence. So they talking about it was clothing missing. And I say we dropped her off as is, like the way she was dropped off was the way she came. And then at the end of the report, now they actually confirm the missing clothing, and that's the clothing that was taken by law enforcement for whatever little evidence that they wanted to create this bogus charge with. I don't know, Mr. Nubula. There shouldn't be any reason why they couldn't get the clothing back now, is there? Mr. Nubula, I would assume no, Judge. I don't know. I don't know what kind of condition it is in, the court. Well, I would ask that they contact the police department to see if they can be returned. If it can't, it may have been lost. It may have been disposed of otherwise. But if it is not returned, then $195 for the clothing. Additionally, probation supervision fees, I didn't say it already, will be assessed in the amount of $360. The full amount is due now, but you may pay monthly installments of $10 a month. Additional terms and conditions are you're not to have any contact with children under the age of 16 unless that child is accompanied by an adult. I was still in high school, and they say I'm not to have any contact with any body under 16. I was still in high school. If you are referred to any program by your agent, you must participate in a mental health or specialized sex offender treatment program. You're not to use or possess alcohol beverages. You're not to use or possess any controlled substances. You're subject to being tested for drug and alcohol use. You're not to tamper with that process in any way. You shall participate in adult education or a GED program. You are to participate in an electronic monitoring and abide by the rules of that program. Not leave that program with permission of your agent. You will report to Ms. Bamford after today's hearing, and she will schedule your appointment to be placed on that program. You're not to move or change your address without permission of your agent. You're not to initiate, establish, or maintain verbal, written, electronic, or physical contact with the victim in this case. You must register as required by law under the Sex Offender Registration Act. And under that law, you must provide notification of any address change in person within 10 calendar days if you move to a local law enforcement agency, the Sheriff's Department, or Michigan State Police. You're not to engage in any alternative abuse, threatening, or intimidating behavior. You're not to associate with anyone you know to have a felony record without permission of your agent. You're not to use any object as a weapon. You cannot own a weapon or have any ammunition or firearm components in your possession. If you're not engaged in an alternative education program, you must work a minimum of 30 hours per week. And you must report any arrest, police contact, lost employment, or change of address to your agent within 24 hours, weekends, and holidays, accepted. Do you have any questions about the terms and conditions? Me, no sir. The court, do you know where to find Ms. Bamford? The defendant, yes sir. The court, all right, you need to go over there from here. It's my duty to inform you that you have the right to request a leave of appeal of this disposition. If you can't afford to hire an attorney to represent you, I would appoint an attorney for you and provide your attorney with such portions of this record as needed to prepare your appeal. Any request for the appointment of an attorney must be made in writing and must be made within 42 days of today's date. The form that you are signing is your acknowledgement that I have given you this notice of your right to appeal. I get the signed copy back, you keep the unsigned copy. Attached to your copy is a financial schedule that you must comply with if you intend to request that court-appointed counsel to assist you. Mr. Grant, Your Honor, for the record, Mr. Evans has signed the request for appointment of attorney form. I'm giving him a copy of it. And sending the original back to the court. The court, all right, Mr. Grant, thank you. The court. I got the signed copy, Mr. Evans has his. Anything further for the record, Mr. Nubila? Mr. Nubila. No, Your Honor. The court. Mr. Grant. Mr. Grant. No, Your Honor, thank you. The court. All right. Don't forget to stop by Ms. Bamford. So, again, at the age of 17, a young lady snuck out of her home. Snuck away from her home, I guess, because to my paperwork that I received a few months ago, I see that her mom told this 15-year-old girl she can go hang out in the front yard with me at 1 something in the morning, which I had no intentions on going to hang out with her in the front yard. I had no idea she was supposed to stay in the front yard, but this girl called me before we got there to tell me do not come to her house and meet her at the corner. So this girl met us at the corner. She snuck away from her mom's house after her mother told her do not leave the front yard. And she goes, gets in this vehicle with me, immediately start touching me. I'm touching her. We doing what we want to do. We go back to the house. We attempt to have sex. I can't get an erection. She ends up having consensual sex with someone else in the house that has pretty much my same name, that was like 2 to 3 years older than me. Her mom begins to call my phone. I don't know what time it was, but when she calls my phone, I take my phone to the young lady. Young lady don't want to answer the phone. The mother calls back to back to back to back. The girl don't want to answer. I remember somebody saying somebody need to drop her off. They asked her, should I take you home? I can remember her clearly saying no. By the time my phone stopped ringing, the girl was ready to go home. When we dropped her off, she said, do not drop me back off at my house. Drop me off at the same corner you picked me up from. Drops her off. Instead of going in the direction of her house, she goes in the opposite direction. So there's no telling what time she actually went home or what she did in between the time from the time we dropped her off at the corner. She requested us to drop her off instead of her home to get into the house. Goes home. She gets in trouble. Trouble moves from the young lady to me. My first initial charge that I heard of was kidnapping from one of my friends. I thought he was playing. He had no seniority in his voice. A few weeks later, I find out that that kidnapping charge was actually real. And the charge went from kidnapping to rape. Turned myself in with a 16-page written statement stating everything that happened from the beginning to the end, which nothing happened. They let me go, disregarded it as an angry parent. Eventually ended up talking to the young lady. She broke down and started crying, telling me it's her mama. Her mama is tripping. She don't know what to do. I'm going to court at the age of 17, believing that this is all a big misunderstanding, and ultimately, before it was over, they actually got me to sign a deal for statutory CSC 4, which is criminal sexual conduct in the 4th degree, for touching a minor. And they say because she was in between the ages of 13 and 16, and with me touching her, that I violated the Michigan law of touching a minor because she didn't have her legal parent or guardian's consent. And to avoid 15 years in prison, I had to sign this plea deal that my lawyer told me that I will have 36 months probation, 6 months ankle monitor, and I will walk out as a free man. But if I didn't sign that deal, I was going to get 15 years. I ends up signing the deal. When the judge was rolling down the terms of my agreement, he told me about the 36 months probation, the 6 months ankle monitor, and then he added an additional element that my attorney didn't tell me about, which was registering as a sex offender. I had no idea what a sex offender was, but I understood that I had to do it in order to avoid 15 years in prison, because that was the term of my condition, and if I didn't accept that, then I didn't accept the deal, and that meant I would have to go to trial, which would have gave me 15 years in prison. When the judge told me about registering as a sex offender, that I had no idea what a sex offender was, never even heard the phrase, he asked my attorney, did he tell me about the sex offender? My attorney told the judge that he did not tell me about anything about a sex offender. So my attorney bent down and told me that I would have to tell the police department where I live for the next 10 years. Which means I should have been getting off when I was like 17. That was 12 years ago. That was 11 years ago. I'll be 38 next week. I am 37 years old. So, I signed a deal to avoid 15 years in prison. Even though the young lady that was involved in the case told the investigator that she wanted to have sex, even though she told the investigator that everything that happened was her, because of her, even though I signed a plea deal, even though the young lady told the judge that she didn't want me to get punished or go to jail or go to prison, but yet you had this mother that just would not let it go, and she just wanted somebody punished, and I had to be the one. So I signed this deal, signing the deal thinking I'm signing for freedom on a crime or a charge that wasn't a crime, thinking that everything could be over when I was like 27, but yet I'll be 38 and I'm still here, still fighting this case, because this case refused to let me go. That 10-year registration has turned into a lifetime. In Texas, I'm living in Texas, they had me on the registry for a lifetime. I'll never get off the registry, according to Texas, and I'm trying to figure it out. But again, you know, I'm gonna emphasize this too, because I'm not making these videos to humiliate anyone. I'm not making these videos to punish anyone. I'm not making these videos to belittle anyone. I am truly making these videos because I'm stuck in a system I have no idea how to escape. I'm making these videos because I've went through some pain that I truly don't understand, and I'm trying to figure out how to fix it. I'm making these videos because I want people to understand like how I feel and what I had to go through and what actually happened. But again, my story is my story, and my story is only 1/3 of the story. These transcripts, these open record transcripts, that's only another 1/3 of the story. But if you really want the full story, if you want that last 1/3 of the story, you're gonna have to get it from the young lady that was there. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up. I do have 2 surprise videos, 2 surprise packet videos that you will not want to miss. And those surprise videos have to do with this case that took place when I was 17, but they are current, and I will not be holding anything back on the new files. But this is case number 00-5992-FH. Again, you want to pull these open record request forms. It will be number 00-5992-FH. Again, thank you for tuning in and following my case. Please subscribe to RoShawn's Journey YouTube channel, and I'll see you on my 2 surprise videos. Talk to you soon.